Hey everybody, it is May 24th, 2009. I am Sonic Suns, and I'm thinking, as I often do, about a concept that has been just stirring around in my mind for quite a while. Something I call wurlum. W-U-R-L-U-M. Um, and that basically is just, or very much so really, is a continuation of things we've talked about previously in E-Nation videos. This thing I first learned about through Perry Urban. The concepts he was thinking about or bandying about. Basically, just new ways people could organize via the internet. Or the very basic idea involved, what if we could make our own YouTube and sort of self-govern it somehow? That evolved into, um, more general ideas of organization or cooperation, generally employed or constructed or insert cool verb here via the internet, and generally being chaordic, as they say, as a neat little phrase I got from these discussions is chaos and order put together. See, chaordic, or something appears to be rather random and weird and not really controlled by anybody, but it sort of works out, and does something useful, as opposed to the normal idea of chaos, which is just, something useless. It's just chaos. It's just doing nothing. And I suppose the exact definition of chaos versus order versus chaotic would be a little weird to find out the exact line of that definition goes, but whatever. People are talking about E-Nation. There was a Ning site for a while where we talked about E-Nation a bit. There wasn't a whole lot of activity on that. Eventually Mr. Urban shut it down. I made a video at some point. I made several videos on E-Nation. There are a couple of 4-part videos called E-Nation or more thoughts on E-Nation, E-Nation website ideas, things like that. And I actually made a video called The Group, which is essentially a continuation of that without calling it E-Nation. And at some point, I don't know exactly when, I started thinking, we should have a name for this concept or this thing, and not the name of E-Nation, though I guess I'm allowed to use that, but just to, have complete novelty in the whole subject matter. I thought, well, if you could have what else would I name it besides E-Nation, which is a pretty good name. And wurl eventually came to mind. W-U-R-L. That seemed interesting because, number one, it evokes a whirling, swirl, a whirlpool. Things coming together, sort of thing. That seems a little chaotic to me. There's sort of rapids and all pieces of water going back and forth, and then they come together at something. Interesting. Also, it sounds like world. Like the world, the earth, or people, or whatever. Just take the D off the end. You have whirl. Well, that's pretty cool. And then you have to misspell the middle of it. But nevertheless. And then it happens to involve URL, which, we're on the internet. Oh, okay, that's cool. That's cool. And I talked about, or thought about, rather, that maybe wurl would be like the very basic notion, and then you'd have like a specific organization or entity of wurl, which would be, let's call it wurlum. Sure, why not? That's a word. And then you could have like wurlians. Would that be the person who is involved with the thing? Wurlish is now an adjective. Sort of things. But you might be wondering, if you haven't watched those previous videos, and perhaps this own video I'm making is rather inefficient, what exactly am I talking about with the internet organization thing? Well, I guess I'm not exactly sure myself. So perhaps I'll make a more coherent video on this later. But in the meantime, it's been a while since I made a video. I have to make these videos more often. I have too many ideas to stay silent. Think of Wikipedia. Perfect place to start. Wikipedia now does have, technically, there's the Wikimedia Foundation, and they have like a board, I think. That's fairly, standard, I guess. But think about how most of it works, wherein anybody walks into Wikipedia and contributes whatever information they have. And sometimes they contribute, false information or just outright lies. but generally just contribute whatever they have, and then via the actions of everybody, this all gets summed up into one incredible coherent whole, or generally coherent. It is flawed, but it's good stuff. And then everyone receives as much of this information as they want. The interesting factors of this are, number one, total non-coercion, really, or very near total non-coercion. You can submit or not submit anything entirely at your will. You know, not like taxes or anything. Not like, no one's forced here. And you can look at any page or not look at any page at your whim. There's no one at all, you can only use Wikipedia as a reference. You can't use anything else. No, if you want to go someplace else, go to any other site on the internet. We don't care. No one's stopping you. Non-coercion. And yet stuff is getting done. And there are rules to do. You can get banned off the site, for instance. If you're a real repeat offender, they'll start, trying to figure out how to, get rid of you, et cetera, et cetera. But really, there's not much to it, there's no formal review process. There's no, okay, go to this thing, and then you have to get, certified, and then, fill out some paperwork, send it to this guy, have a meeting, we'll talk to pass these laws, okay, no one edit anything that has too many vowels in the title of the third word, and no, not really. It's chaotic, and yet it produces encyclopedia, so it's chaotic, because it does something. Think also about open source software, particularly the successful projects. And a lot of open source software is not successful, but think of Linux, for instance, or Ubuntu, a particular flavor thereof. Everyone contributes all sorts of stuff, at all sorts of various points along the line. There's some official Ubuntu developers, but then there's Debian, which that is based off of, which is more community-based thing, and anybody at any point could make some code, sends it to somebody, which eventually gets around, and rewritten by someone who's inspired by that code to get around into something that goes into the final thing that people use. And this is the natural way of this. Isn't some weird coincidence that something. No, this is generally how it works. People just talking, people just thinking, people just. I've got some code here. Here's a program. Here's a part of a program. Here's a concept. Here's a. Even just an idea. There's something called the Ubuntu brainstorm site, where people just post up and vote upon various ideas to improve Ubuntu. And they just share that around. Great, now the idea's out there. 1,000 people voted that this toolbar should be moved over here. And then eventually the developer guy's oh, that's a good idea. Oh, gee, thank you. Now the idea is passed on to him, and he does a thing. Entirely non-coercive. Isn't that interesting? No one has to contribute, really. No one really has to use the software. Interesting. And so, I'm toying around with other ideas. At some point, I'm going to make a more coherent video on this subject. I think part of my motivation was just to make a video that says wurlum in it, so I can establish that word before it. Actually, I remember way back I was Googling various ideas I had to see how many results it would get. Wurlum gets practically nothing. I was great, that'll be a important word. Suppose people could cooperate, help each other in this non-coercive, chaotic manner.